this stuff before. Oh well. I have to do this shit like a couple hours a day, every fucking day, everywhere. Not like everywhere every day. Just again, you can't do it. There's not enough time. It's as if there's an ultra fine silver white fiber nano filaments, you might say. Uh, it feels like my, you know, if you think of your skin as, you know, with your pores and your at a certain scale, going smaller and smaller, your skin isn't really a sealed container. It's more like a sponge. I mean, it's, you know, not like some big secret. It's been said for a long time, so I'm not like going out on a limb here saying that. Our skin is like a sponge. It absorbs things that are small enough to get into it easily. And beyond that, then as a similar to a sponge, there's a vasculature or network of, you know, passages through our skin. So that conceivably, you've seen that movie, like The Incredible Journey. It's like a '70s movie where you know, they shrink down the crew and the ship, and they inject them into somebody's bloodstream, and they, you know, The Incredible Journey, I believe it's called. So at that, you know, really, really small scale, we're like a sponge. And so in the same way that, okay, let me back up here. Okay, so we're like a sponge, right? Everything is, it's an electric universe. Everything is electric magnetic. Every molecule, or whatever you want to call them, atom, you know, particle or non-particle or waveform function, whatever unit you choose to describe it at a certain fundamental level, it's electricity. It's, you know, vibrating strings of energy, they, as string theorists would say. You know, so at that, what do we know about electricity? Well, we can say like, oh, electron flow is said to be from the negative to the positive, and then, you know, contrary to what seems most likely, being that you'd think of positive as being a higher pressure, and as a, you know, metaphor for electricity, the pressure you would think goes from the higher to the lower, but it doth not. So they say it goes from lower to higher, and you know, experiments and testing with diodes and multimeters shows this to be true. Anyway, so we know that about electricity, and we've seen lightning. We know it can travel through open air, open areas. It can, you know, pull a partial vacuum on a vacuum chamber and determine that, you know, a plasma stream will flow much better through, you know, very, very low pressure air than high pressure air, which I might mention that the vacuum theory, um, come on, get real. Vacuum? First of all, there's no such thing as a vacuum. It's impossible to have a vacuum because it's relative to something else. And as long as there is pressure somewhere to be relative to, it could never be a total vacuum. There's no such thing. It's a non-existing thing to think of a vacuum as, you know, being void of pressure, at least. I suppose it could be void of matter, but that would be in void of, you know, molecules completely, the way they describe space. Anyway, let me get back to my point here. Okay, we're like a sponge. There's passages all through our skin besides our, nerves in our blood vessels, which are their own pathways. And being that everything's electric, well, let's say that most people are familiar with waveforms or wavelengths. I mean, that physical things have a certain wavelength to them. This much has this much wavelength or half wavelengths. The wavelength is a physical distance, physical distance. And metals are conductive, so metals are generally used for antennas and things to catch the signal, but the actual signal doesn't get caught by the long silver antenna so much as it gets caught by the wound tuner inside of a radio. And the tuner's wound at specific sizes and distances so that they get specific frequencies. So when you turn it on 92.3 kGON, you get 92.3 kGON in clarity, right? So electricity can travel in that form too. Travels all kinds of different ways. The metals, the antennas, so every piece of metal has a certain wavelength to it, depending on what frequency of microwave electricity may happen to encounter that piece of metal. And now it's nowhere to go in a circuit, so when a microwave, say, comes through the air and this is made out of metal, it hits this metal, it goes and it shorts out internally, and so it neutralizes itself basically. It's kind of why anyway, but it has a specific frequency, and if say if we're just talking like a pin or something, not like a pin you write with or a pin you keep animals in, but a pin like a stick pin or a sewing pin. Think of that. Well, you put electricity through it, and there's in a frequency, and either pulsed or an AC, and there'll be a certain frequency of the electricity that matches the frequency of that pin, and the pin will begin to resonate. If you're following me. When the wavelength, the physical wavelength, is the same as the size of the piece of metal that's receiving the signal, the two things kind of go into resonance because everything has a certain resonance. Anyway, it electrifies. It becomes charged and polarized, positive one end, negative on the other. Now, if you have tens of thousands and millions and billions, trillions, conceivably, trillions, probably trillions, maybe quadrillions of nano pins, the inside of a vessel, and you beam a microwave at it of a certain frequency, say the same frequency as the wavelength of all of the pins in there. There's a billion pins of the same exact size, and you inside of a vessel, this is just a conceptual idea here, and you microwave it, and what happens is all those things will become individually charged, and as soon as they do that, they will align themselves positive to negative with the other pins around them because the opposites attract. So even though it's one power source microwave that electrifies all of these nano pins, similar to how ferrofluid works, I might add, except in electrical way. It's like electrical ferrofluid in this conceptual idea I'm laying out here. So okay, so they become charged. They align themselves into straight lines. Now that's inside of a vessel too. So they're how are they doing what are they aligning to? It's not just an empty vessel with a hollow center chamber like a milk jug or something, or a spherical container. It's a vessel with other structures in it, physical, biological structures, natural structures. Let's say let's say it was like a dog or something, right? Okay, so the dog, somehow this dog ingested enough nanoparticles that every cell in its body is filled with nanoparticles, especially the parts that absorb it, like, the dog's glands and its lymph nodes and things of that nature. So the dog's got 1 billion particles in it that are all the same length and size, pieces of metal that have a wavelength to them, and they're so small that it's got to be a really high frequency wavelength, right? So you do the math on that, which you don't really need to do the math. You don't even need to know how to do the math to understand what's being said. Anyway, so you got 1 billion particles in the dog, and let's say they're all, I don't know, how about 42 gigahertz. That super high frequency is the frequency that the time it takes the electrical impulse to travel the length of the particle at the speed of light, supposedly. The speed of light, how they got that, I'm a little skeptical about. I don't think you can measure that finely, but I don't get over 7 miles, you try like 7 million miles or 7,000 miles, I don't know. Anyway, at the speed of light, it takes X amount of time for the electrical charge to travel through the nano pin. Say it was 42 gigahertz. Frequency was, its frequency. The pin becomes electrified, aligns itself with other pins that are near it, whichever positives and negatives are closest. So what these pins are going to naturally want to do is line up from the electricity inside the dog. And then where are these pins in the dog? They're most likely in suspension, like in his bloodstream, because the dog was like ripping apart a bag of aluminum oxide powder, and because he was bored and it happened to be in the basement or something, right? And so the dog tears it all apart. Oh, but he accidentally inhales a bunch of it. Looks like he was doing cocaine, like that movie Cocaine Bear that's supposed to be coming out. Cocaine Bear. And so the dog gets all these nanoparticles, and then he was stuck down there for like a week before the owners came back. How about that? And so there was nothing to eat except the aluminum oxide powder too. So he decided, well, I might as well eat it now. And so he just ate as much as he could and was pooping out little silver briquettes. And so the dog's got 1 billion particles in him, right? Where was I? Dog's got the particles in him. They're 42 gigahertz, and the new 5G tower goes up from across the street where the neighbor sold his house, so that everyone else in the neighborhood can enjoy the shade of the giant cell tree that's disguised to not look like a cell tower, of course, because we don't want to see cell towers that are microwaving the area with their super cool 5G signal. I mean, that's the best. Verizon and T-Mobile, you guys rule. Now, what was I saying? Okay. So they put the cell tower in, and the dog's in the basement next door with 1 billion nanoparticles in them of 42 gigahertz wavelength, and well, the 5G is supposed to be up to 60 gigs. So, anywhere in between, really, it doesn't have to, be at 60 gigs. If it was under full load of information capabilities, it'd probably be at 60 gigs. And I'm just guessing on that part. I haven't really looked into it that closely, but understand that like the higher the frequency, the more information can be transferred, because the wave crests and troughs faster, and therefore any information or signal that you are putting heterodyning, perhaps, I don't know, any of the information you could get off of that signal, because you've got the baseline, and then any alterations are your information. So anyway, the higher the frequency, the more can be transmitted at once. I mean, that's why they supposedly need to do this. I don't know anybody that said their phone wasn't fast enough 20, 30 years ago, and said, oh, we got to have this. Apparently, they just decided on their own. But anyway, I digress. the cell tower goes up, and it's on a whatever particular day of it's busy enough to reach the 42 gig range, and they start transmitting their signal at 42 gigs to keep up with all the calls and the data and the downloaded movies and the emails and the hookups from the hookers on Facebook and stuff. That I've heard about. It's retarded. Anyway, the 42 gig signal is out, and the dog's like, oh, because he's got a billion particles that are electrified inside him, and they align themselves into strands because they're charged from the 42 gig frequency that electrifies them when it's at the right frequency. You can electrify things like remotely that way. That's how remote power transmission works. But although I've heard Ken Wheeler say, well, ask an electrician how a wireless charger works if it's electron flow that creates charging, which just seems like a valid question to me. Like, okay, how does wireless charging work if it takes electron flow and there's not electron flow happening through the through the air without ether, of course. If you factor in this magical ether, right? Well, then you could have electron flow through the air. But if you don't believe in ether, well, then there's something else going on. I can't recall what the official story is about that one right at the moment. But getting this area right here. Okay, so I digress. The dog gets electrified, it goes on, and then strands. Think about that. Strands. Tendrily nanofiber strands. What has tendrily nanofiber strands? Is there a white hair epidemic going on? It's been going on so long now, I think most people are probably just renormalized to it, but there was a time when not everybody and their cousin had white hair and white beards and white mustaches and white pubes and fucking white everything. There was a time when there's always been people, usually much older people, with white hair and silver hair and silvery blue hair, which is, by the way, of the color of metals. Those are all metallic colors. Just saying. Now the story about the hair is that it turns white or silver or whatever because you get old and the pigment cells stop working, and so it loses its coloration, and that's why it turns white. But that falls a little short because there are quite a few people that I see that their hair, their beard. I got stopped by a cop once, and he he gave me a ticket. He's handed me the ticket. He's probably about 50 or so, and he's like his hair on his arms was kind of long, right? It was sticking out from under the cuff of his shirt. It was all white. It was like creepy, weird. And he was like, yeah. Anyway, there's a white hair epidemic been going on for 15, 20 years. Well, about 15 years since I first started thinking it, and about 10 years since I actually first said it. But my videos don't really get watched, so who cares? White hair epidemic. Metallic colors. I wonder, conspiracy theory wise, what if you breathed aluminum oxide or, say, barium and strontium oxide metallic gases? I don't know, all day, every day, and all night, every night for year after year after year. Those are metals, they're real physical things. A nanoparticle is just as real as a bullet. My friend Victor back in the day, he says, he was gonna mind over matter the persistent heavy contrails and the things that are supposed to be in them. And I just remember thinking, and so he just act like it was nothing. Oh, but it's not going to affect me because I won't let it into my reality, kind of thing, right? And I would just say, Well, do that with lead then. If you can, if a nanoparticle, if you can just make a nanoparticle of metal not affect you, well, just make lead not affect you, and then you can walk through gunfire and you'll be perfectly fine. As long as you don't allow it into your reality, then it's not real. I don't think you want to try that, and I don't think anybody probably would try that because you can't just, unless you're Neo, and then, are you saying I would be able to dodge bullets? No, I'm saying when you're ready, you won't have to, right? No, not that. Nanoparticles are just as real as bullets. Now, bullets blow pieces of your body off and holes in you and kill you quickly. Nanoparticles accumulate toxically, become electrified, form chains within you of antenna which vibrate at the resonant frequency that is being transmitted to them, right? This isn't a speculation. This is just me reviewing some facts about the world, right? Because I not once yet have, in this long ass stupid, you know, diatribe I'm on, while I'm burning the whatever out of the whatevers, because I'm crazy, right? Not once have I, said anything outside the known and accepted laws of physics and known, you know, known things about electricity and waveforms. So I haven't laid out any conspiracy theory at all. I'm just talking about things that are, you know, theoretical because it's a dog, and a dog's in the basement, and he got the nano in him, and then microwave electricity from a transmitter happens to like flow through there. It's at the right frequency, it electrifies the particles line up and they form hairs, and then the dog's got white hair. End of story. I guess it's, pigment cells probably stopped working. It had nothing to do with the nanoparticles being white and aligning themselves into strands inside the dog in this hypothetical situation, because because that's not a thing. But what is as you get old, your pigment cells stop working, and then your hair turns white. And so what we can take from this is that devoid of pigmentation, our skin, our hair, probably all of it, is dark snow white, just like the driven new snow. White as can be, white as white as white. Even black people are white. Who knew, right? I've seen the light. Okay, anyway, white. So when you see someone and their hair, I see people all the time, and, big beards, mustaches sometimes, or just women or men with their hair. They got thick hair. It's pure white. Sometimes as it's turning white, there'll be some still color remaining until it goes all the way. And the story is that it's pigment cells are not working because they're getting old. How about pigment cells are irrelevant once enough white substance has accumulated in a person that it's filling every single cell in their body, including the fibers of their hairs, wrapped around it probably with nanoparticle strands that have been aligned into nanofilaments due to electricity that has microwaved through them and electrified them, making them become polarized so that they align themselves. I mean, this is, not rocket science. That's simple electronics 101 type stuff. It's not even, advanced. I don't really know the advanced. I just stick with the simple because you can deduce a lot of stuff from the baseline, fundamentals of different different trades or whatever, different skills. Anyway, I'm gonna have to finish my burning here, so I'm gonna just put this thing down. But thanks for listening. Spread the word about something. I don't know, anything. Notice something. Notice anything. That's really what I'm saying. It sucks, like feeling like the only person who seems to have any recollection of what the sky is supposed to look like on any given day, what clean air smells like, what a cloud looks like, how much wildlife used to be in the area, and what kind of wildlife that is, and noticing that it's just not there. When I was young, there were frogs all over Vancouver, Camas, Washougal, the entire area around the Columbia River, Portland. There were lots of frogs, lots of salamanders and frogs and all kinds of creepy, crawly, amphibian, slimy things. But the frogs were most noticeable because, you know, in the spring they would be high and trying to hop across the road, and we'd have squished frogs all over the roads. You know, all over the roads, lots of roads, not just one road in one area. Lots of roads. There was a lot of frogs, and it was, you know, like that each year, and then that just tapered off sometime in the early '90s, and then just was gone by the end of the '90s. Like the frog population had pretty much been done away with. And oh, it's man-made climate change affecting the environment. That's what it. I forgot, you know, because you know, anything bad that happens is your fault. You're doing it, and it's the idea that anybody in you know the halls of power has ever done anything to harm their people is ludicrous. No government's ever harmed anybody except for, you know, those terrorist states on the other side of the world that we're defending ourselves from right now with every dollar that, you know, 56 cents out of every dollar that you put into taxes is defending ourselves in other parts of the world. But I digress. Thank goodness those brave men are over there defending us right now. Otherwise, you know, we'd probably be getting raped by Al Qaeda members who are selling drugs to our kids. It makes a lot of sense. Let's never question it. No expenditure is too great for freedom. I was trying to go with that. I don't know if I did it. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna end it. I thought I was done already, but then I keep on going because I'm stoned. But you gotta get stoned before you can have to deal with this burn. So I guess we could do a quick Morgellons update. See, I'm still red and shit, but it's faded out quite a bit. Here's a sign of it. This wrinkly stuff on the top right there. That's where it's all affected, infected, whatever. It feels like fungus through my skin, and it just won't die, and so it's keeping the skin all kind of jacked up there. It feels really soft and silky actually, but internally it feels swollen and like prone to just bouts of pain for no particular reason. Morgellons is fun. Thanks, Uncle Sam. You're the greatest. Let's see. Really on my sides too here. It doesn't look like much, but it's as if it's like so. You know what I was gonna show you here? It's like it's, you know, it feels like it's coming from my kidneys or something, but other times it feels like it's some sort of fungus growing from literally my spine. It hurts right to the core. My back has been giving out a lot lately because I've been trying to do more than I probably should in a day, which is trying to do anything in a day some days. Anyway, oh yeah, okay. Check this out. Now before, this line here, this line was going up the side of my neck here, the side of my neck here, and went right into this spot on the back of my ears. And you go back 5 years in my videos, and I've got several videos where, you know, my ears all raw red, and it says like a piranha's chewing it off, and it was just the skin like split open and bled, and I could feel, you know, I could feel sensations of the Morgellons, the energy waves from the, you know, non-existent microwaves that don't affect anything, right? Because they're non-ionizing, which is another lie. There's no such thing as non-ionizing radiation, but I digress about that too. So my ear's all bloody and stuff, and in that video, which just happens to be where this line here came visible. You know, this wasn't always visible, this red stuff. I could feel it, and then I could see it at certain angles. The light reflecting off of my skin would give away like a line that you could see, and it just happened to be that these are the lines that it eventually turned into. It took years for that to happen, though. And it always feels very fuzzy, soft, and silky there, like really fine filament strands, like spiderweb silk hair, which is exactly what the fucking Mr. Morgellons is, said to be. Which has been said for decades. And, no, it's not real. Okay, whatever. Don't forget to make your child support payments and get that court fines paid too, while you're out there working hard with your Morgellons. You know, sign up for your government health care. Go to the doctor and he'll help you. Right? You know, the doctor's not there to help you. Doctors are witches. They take a vow to Apollo. I mean, come on. I digress. The Morgellons. What was I saying? Oh yeah, this. Let me check it out. Okay, so it was up the sides of my neck, and then it started closing in and closing in. And at certain times, I could feel it was like running through my nostrils, but I couldn't see it up here. And my cheeks here, and my eyebrows, of course. It targets the sensory areas around your eyes, around your ears, around your throat. Um, I think it's like bugging the people, turning people into walking RFIDs, so that they don't need to be chipped. They are the chip. You know, dissimilar metals in a container with a semi-conductive membrane in between is called a battery. Our body naturally separates things that come into it, toxins. It will store them wherever it can. It doesn't put it all together and just have it like that necessarily. You know, what if one metal were to concentrate in your liver, say, and another metal would concentrate in your brain or your heart or your kidney or your spleen or your pancreas or your pineal gland or any of those things? The dissimilar metals inside of the plasma of your body, inside your blood and everything, would start to have different charges. So then you have nanoparticle strand chains growing through your body that are organized via microwave frequency manipulation. I don't know. Frequency. They're controlled by frequency. It's like a remote control, They're being grown. And then I guess if you were doing that to the dog on purpose, right? I'm saying this is say an evil government rogue element got loose and did something like this to the dog. Then well, you wouldn't want to admit that if you were the government, of course, because people might get upset that you're taking their money and intentionally using it to poison and kill them. I don't know. I mean, maybe people don't care anymore. Here, take my money and go buy some more poison and come and kill me with it next time, would you? Yeah, kid. Gosh darn old government. You get on now. We got a war to get to. So, anyway, is that what people do? Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Take my tax money. I'm glad to pay it. This is the greatest country in the world. I'm free. I'm free. Woohoo. And freedom isn't free. You pay up. I live in retard land. Okay, I'm gonna be done now before I start on some other subject that makes me just shake my head and like go, Calgon, take me away. Hey, that's what I should name the boat, Calgon. Take me away. I don't know. Alright. Have a nice day.